Hello, I'm Chris Richmond, and today, or should I say tonight, I'm off to catch up with an old friend of mine. Now, this old friend of mine is a chap called Neil Fellows, musician, photographer and undertaker, but not necessarily in that order. Neil and I go back several years to the early days of Norfolk Uncovered, when we would accompany each other on visits to some of those wonderful derelict locations we did back then. However, things have moved on, and Neil has actually been a bit of a recluse, hiding from social media and the like, but has recently made a reappearance and got back in touch with me, which is brilliant because we have a lot to catch up on, and I thought, you know what, let's do a video because we've got some great stories between us.
Right, now I haven't seen Neil for the best part of 5 years, but I just know we're going to have a fun-filled evening. We've got lots to catch up on. But Neil is that one friend who quite literally ended up in the clink and said, damn, we messed up, to put it cleanly. Yes, Neil and I go back almost 10 years, back to the early days of Norfolk Uncovered, and we went down to the Newmarket Road chalk mines. There was a little bit of a craze where everyone was out exploring the chalk mines, and so we did that particular one. Anyhow, published a video, and a year later, out of nowhere, the police decided to blitz us both, take all of our stuff away. They received a complaint from Natural England because the Newmarket Road chalk mines actually a bats protection site, you know, an SSSI. So yes, that backfired on us very heavily, and we've both had to clean up our act a bit since then. But nearly 5 years have passed under the bridge. That's a long time ago now. I like to think I've got a bit more mature and a bit wiser since then. So we'll see what this evening entails. Good evening, Neil.
Evening, Chris.
It's been too long. It's been, what,
Far too long.
4 years?
Gotta be 4 years. Gotta be. Where does the time go?
How did we actually meet before we get into this tale about bats?
How did we meet? Well, that was through good old urban exploration, as I recall, and chalk mines. It's a real craze, wasn't there?
Yeah. So which should we do? We did Harford Hills first, didn't we?
That's right.
Yeah, lovely labyrinth of tunnels, and the second one, I can't remember how we found the second one, Newmarket Road.
I remember seeing it. I remember going down one time in that whole area, because obviously it's a disused pit, and I found the lime kiln that was down there. I went and had a look down there, and I think it was then that you and I started talking about it. It was just after then, I think. But then there was obviously the almost military style planning to get into the place, wasn't there? Because of those, remember those gates?
Yes, we needed a 14mm, I still remember, a 14mm hex key, which I obtained from a fellow explorer.
Who shall remain unnamed.
Well, yes, we don't want any further repercussions to what we're about to explain.
Yeah.
See, a year later, after we made the video, after it was published online, we were dealt with by good old Norfolk police. Apparently, Natural England put a 9-page complaint in about why we shouldn't have been in this particular chalk mine. We didn't know at the time, but it's actually an SSSI, and there were bats roosting in there, and we knew nothing about this. But anyhow, see, I quite vividly remember having all my equipment taken off me and confiscated while I was then transported away and locked in custody for 4 hours. Was that a similar case with you? I can't remember. What was your side of the story?
Well, my side of it was getting the panic phone call from you saying, Neil, the police are on the way. We're being arrested. And
Yeah.
I remember the blind panic I went into because I had a few hard drives that had lots of pirated software on. Anyway, moving on. And I think it was only about 10 minutes later that there was a knock on the door, and two CID were there, a lady and a gentleman, both of whom were very pleasant. Now, they had a search warrant, but I very quickly decided I'm going to cooperate here. I'm going to play ball, because I was obviously I'd had the tip off, from yourself, but I just felt kind of go in and help. It seemed to be the most logical thing to do. So we had a chat first, and they started to show me photographs, and everything they said to me, I was like, yes, 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 that was me, 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 that was me. Yeah, I don't like to admit it, but that was me. And they said about the computer that they wanted to seize my computer, for which I was already prepared. And I actually volunteered mine. They were prepared not to take it, but for some stupid reason I said, no, that's fine, I'm quite happy to do that. And they said, yeah, okay, we'll take it then. My dear lady was not impressed at the way that looked, because we'd had certain
that
things.
could look quite dodgy.
It looked very, very dodgy actually, and getting into a plain police car, which was clearly a police car. I think the few of the curtains were twitching at the windows and that. So my dear lady was unimpressed with me over that. But yes, then I suddenly found myself transported to Elsham.
Elsham, yes.
Yeah, it's a very fine town, Norfolk town.
Yeah.
And it was 4 hours. It was about 4 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny how our paths never crossed.
Yeah, so we were both in there exactly the same time. Yeah, I had no idea that they arrested you. I gave you the tip off that they might do after they came to sort me out, but 4 hours we were both in there. We never saw each other once.
Nope.
Yet we were in there at the same time. It's crazy.
But went through the whole rigmarole. Had to take the belts off the trousers.
Oh yeah.
Shoelaces out of the shoes. Had everything.
Everything
over.
out of pockets, money, phone, keys, wallet.
The lot,
They took the lot.
Yeah. So yes, and then sat down and questioned, shown various photographs.
Yeah. Now this is the thing, right? What amazed me was how obvious everything was. You think on these internet forums you're in some dark corner, some little niche where only people that you're associated with may be able to see stuff, or people in your hobby or whatever it is. But no, everything was there clear as day. Natural England, or their investigator, had found everything. Pictures, photos of where we'd been before we'd been there, and our build up to this exploration.
So one thing was, although I had a handle or a name, nickname that I used, but I always put my name on my pictures when they were publicly displayed, and it was really for this kind of occasion, so that if there was a problem, I certainly could be easily found. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I never tried to hide anything. And I still believe that the mistake that you and I made, the one mistake that you and I made, was the fact that we put the bats on the pictures. I wonder if we'd have not put those on, whether there would have been,
Well, this is it. See, what we actually got done for was a wildlife offence, wasn't it? It was a wildlife offence because we were in a place where the bats were roosting, and apparently our equipment could raise the temperature by such a fraction of a degree to upset them. So it was a wildlife offence that we committed.
As I say, I knew bats were protected, but until that night, I didn't realise just how protected. No, as I say, we've put my name on the pictures. I was easily found, so of course they found me quick enough, and I've got to be honest, I was quite happy about that, because I think that showed. I'm going to sound very grown up here, Chris. That showed a certain kind of responsibility towards the type of thing we do. That it isn't, from a certain point of view, okay to do these sort of things that we were doing. Going into derelict buildings, it is trespass. Although it's not criminal, in some people's eyes, it's there's a kind of a moral thing there.
Yeah.
But when you by just a simple fact of putting your name on stuff, I think the same with your videos. You weren't hiding who you were.
Not really, no. There was this air of mystery about the Norfolk Uncovered.
Yeah.
But
I
do put I do put my name. I'm not ashamed of the places I've been, and funnily enough, neither was the officer that dealt with me. He was quite interested in what we were doing. That was
the thing. I think the two police officers that I had, a man and lady, and they were going through the pictures, and they were going through other pictures of mine that were on my web page thing, and they were more interested in that. he said, look, you kind of stepped over the line with the, I think, is it the Town and Country Act 1984? Was that the one?
I can't remember. That is testing my memory a bit.
I must see if I can find my charge sheet.
Yeah. Nice to know you still got it.
Oh, God, yeah. And he went through the motion. He said, "We're going to have to put you on police bail for a month while we look into this." And there were several things that they brought up, and I said, "Look, it's obviously it's me." And I got asked about you. Obviously you were the man that had the key.
Yes.
Key.
We didn't force our way in.
No force. There was no welding.
No.
No crowbars. No cutting. There was a key. But as I said to the officer at the time, I didn't see you unlock the gate.
Of course not.
I was in my bag getting my stuff out, and when I turned around, the door was open. I couldn't turn around and say to them, "Yes, I saw Chris Richmond put the key in the lock and undo it."
No.
Never, not such a thing would pass my lips at all.
No, don't drop your mates in it.
Absolutely not. No. Was it they say about honour amongst thieves? Anyway, moving on. No, it was. They just showed me various things. And I think the one thing they sort of like frowned a little tiny bit on was that my handle on these website was Man of Two Worlds.
Yes.
And I always shortened it to MO numeral 2 W. Now let's keep in mind. We've got to keep in mind here. Chalk mind. The clues in the word chalk. I found a piece of chalk, and on a brick, because the gates that we went through, which the door was mysterious, I saw mysteriously open, I didn't see unlocked, there were brick pillars. So I put MO2W in chalk into one of the bricks. I did a really nice board. I was actually quite proud of that little what do they call it, tag, isn't it?
Tag, yeah.
I was quite proud. It did look quite neat with the border all the way around, and then the MO2W.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the age of 46, I got a police caution for graffiti.
All because of that one handle, amongst all the dozens of other tags and inscriptions or whatever, all over those pillars.
Unbelievable. I mean, seriously? A police caution. I mean, is it wrong to say that I kind of own that with a certain amount of pride? 46, Chris. 46 I was at that time.
Brilliant. Crazy world.
Wasn't it just? But wasn't it disappointing when we got inside?
After all that, yeah, it was. I remember it's just one main cavern, a couple of little branches which I believe had been backfilled. So after all that...
It was disappointing, wasn't it? Compared to Harford Hills, which was really quite something, wasn't it?
Which was quite a labyrinth, yeah.
And, and real... proper Indiana Jones stuff in places, I think, where you've got some of those drops which were a good 10-foot drop, weren't they?
Yeah.
And you sort of felt like you were Tomb Raider at times in those.
And we survived.
Didn't we just? Where others didn't.
No.
They had to go out because they got short of breath.
Not mentioning any names.
No names.
But, yeah.
Yeah, some old black dog running somewhere, isn't there, eh?
Bless him.
Bless him.
Yeah.
But he got us in there, though.
Yeah.
He got us in there, so...
Anyhow, enough about bats and chalk mines. What is it you actually do, and what have we come here to see?
Well, I'm a bit like you, a little bit of an enigma. I have many sides to my life. Enigma, great group as well. What's that group? It was one man, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm digressing. But there's a reason I digress, because we're talking about music.
Ah, yes.
See, away from all this craziness, I do have a day job which I don't really talk about. Right? Do you want me to mention that?
Go for it.
I don't often talk about my... there's a little bit of cutting for you there. I don't often talk about my day job, but I'm an undertaker.
Dead bodies. No, we should mention dead bodies.
It's all coming together now, isn't it?
The dead body story. That is another story.
Away from my day job, I'm actually a musician and photographer, which again is how we met through the chalk mines.
Something else we have in common.
So with the photography side my thing was the urban exploration, but also in the interim years I've done a lot of concert photography. Yeah,
I see you've branched out in that direction.
Yeah, sort of quite a few sort of famous people, and got to do some cool jobs with that, which has been really good. It's been really good. Also a musician as well, predominantly electronic style music with
Yeah.
synthesizers and
Yeah.
computers and stuff. So you're looking at the Jean-Michel Jarre, into Zao Tomita, into Wendy Carlos and that sort of stuff, that kind of area. So,
Alright, so shall we go and see the man cave? It's quite impressive.
Let's go see the man cave. Come on.
Right, so here we are in the man cave. So what is it you get up to in here, and how long have you been collecting all this stuff?
Well, this is my little studio. I call this the GTK 33 studio. All right. So GTK is it's kind of like a play on words of the name that I used when I first started to release music about 12 years ago, which was Geigertech. So Geigertech, it's a lot to say Geigertech Studio. So I cut it out GTK 33 because it's an important number, not least the number of the house where we are.
Ah, yeah.
Okay. So so this is where it happens. As you can see, and as I've already said, I'm more about electronic music in the vein of Jean-Michel Jarre, Isao Tomita, famous Japanese synthesist, embody those type of people. Predominantly computer based. I have a lot of software instruments that I use, but also have a collection here of sort of modern day analog synthesizers. I've only been collecting these just for a few months now. They've been bought for a specific project. So what we have here is a collection of predominantly analog synthesizers, which are not relying on digital technology, but more sort of transistor type technology. This one here is a modern remake of a classic synthesizer. I've been coveting one of these for the last 40 years and finally I've got one. This is its modern day counterpart. This also by a French company who predominantly do software synthesizers, but they branch into hardware, very good. Nice little synthesizer here from a company called Roland, very modern, can link up to computers, control computer software instruments with this as well. And then two analog synthesizers here which are all about using cables and patching together and very complicated, and I really haven't got a clue myself yet as to what I'm doing with them. And we have an old sound module, basically a synthesizer in a box with a lot of preset sounds which are very usable. And then over this side, just here, we have, again, from the same company as this one here, it's a Korg, microKorg. Comes in very handy as a vocoder, so I get those very robotic sort of craftwork type sounds. And I have the microphone here so that I can speak and play, you know.
Right, so what's going on here then?
Right, this is a work in progress. I released my first album 11 years ago, sorry, not 12, 11 years ago. And it very much had the feel of the first album, it had that sound. I always liked it, and I always felt it was the sort of like the forgotten cousin, if you like, compared to some of the other releases that I've had. I thought I'd re-record it for whatever unsuspecting public there may be out there. The original title was The Garden, but now that I have that I'm doing the re-recording, I'm giving it a very imaginative new title of The Garden Revisited. What do you think to that, Chris?
You know, I think it's good because you can revisit stuff, and that's one thing I struggle with, is I can't really revisit old stuff. It never sounds the same.
And that's kind of the point, because I think it's when you bring it back and what you're seeing on the screen here is pretty much the original album. It's the original data files from the album. All I've done is to bring new software that I now own, which I didn't have at the time and wasn't available, and with new better production skills that I have now, which I didn't have back then, so that I can recreate the album and get it fuller sounding. I want it to sound the same, but I don't at the same time. So it's still got the same essence, the same soul, but it sounds a lot crisper now. So, you know, revisiting, yeah, it's great. It's nice to go back to do things and give them perhaps a little bit more polish, a little bit more life, a little bit more depth. It's been a fun project to do for the last few months.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing it with me. It's been nice to catch up.
It has. We cannot leave it this long again.
No, definitely not.
We cannot leave it this long again. So perhaps maybe when the stars and the planets are properly aligned, we can get you over here and get you in here as well, and we can do some stuff at some point in the future.
Yeah, that would be good. Right, well, thank you very much for showing me.
My pleasure.
We won't leave it as long next time.
No, we won't.
Well, that was a nice evening. I still can't believe it's been over 4 years since I last spoke to Neil. That's ridiculous. We must try harder to make an effort to stay in touch. He's such an interesting and positive chap, but he is a bit of a night owl. It's like 12:30 at night, and I've still got an hour's drive to get home.
Now for the obligatory closing paragraph. If you enjoy following my quirky, if slightly self-indulgent adventures, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This filmmaking lark just wouldn't be worth it without the support of watchers like you. Until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.